My wife says I'm paranoid, but paranoia is just pattern recognition with a bad attitude, and my attitude's been getting worse by the day. Working late again tonight, Mara announced, not looking up from her phone as she grabbed her purse from the kitchen counter. Same tone she'd used to mention picking up milk, same indifferent shrug, same avoidance of eye contact that had become her signature move over the past 3 months. Big project? I asked, stirring my coffee. The IT repair business taught me to troubleshoot everything methodically. Step 1, gather information. You know how it is. She finally glanced up, flashing that practice smile she used on difficult clients. Alan's got the whole team putting in extra hours for the quarterly review. Alan Ryder. Regional director, married, drives a BMW that costs more than I make in 6 months. The kind of guy who thinks rules are suggestions for people who aren't important enough to ignore them. Right, I said. Alan. She kissed my forehead, a gesture so mechanical it might as well have been a time clock punch, and headed for the door. Don't wait up. The door closed with a soft click, leaving me alone with the hum of the refrigerator and the growing certainty that something was fundamentally wrong with this picture. Jeremy wandered into the kitchen, backpack slung over one shoulder, hair sticking up in 3 different directions. At 13, my son had mastered the art of looking perpetually annoyed by the world's existence. Mom gone already? He asked, grabbing a granola bar from the cabinet. Work calls, I said. He gave me a look that was uncomfortably perceptive for a kid his age. She's been working a lot of late nights lately. That's what happens when you're dedicated to your career. Dad, Jeremy paused in unwrapping his breakfast. You know you're talking to me like I'm stupid, right? Smart kid. Too smart, maybe. I ruffled his hair as he ducked away, protesting. Get to school, wise guy, and fix that hair before you scare your teachers. After he left, I sat in the kitchen with my cooling coffee and tried to shake the feeling that I was missing something obvious. The house felt different when Mara wasn't here. Not empty, exactly, but relieved, like it could finally exhale. My phone buzzed with a text from Marco, my old friend who'd transitioned from police work to private security consulting after his knee gave out. Drinks tonight? Jenny's working late and I'm bored. I typed back, Sure, Mara's working late too. Seems to be going around. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally. Interesting. See you at Murphy's at 7. Murphy's bar occupied the space between respectable and questionable, which made it perfect for conversations you didn't want overheard by people who mattered. The lighting was dim enough to hide the stains on the carpet, and the clientele minded their own business with religious devotion. Marco was already nursing a beer when I arrived. His weathered face creased with the kind of concentration that meant he was working through a problem. So, he said without preamble, how long has Mara been working these late nights? About 3 months. Why? Just curious about the timing. He took a long pull from his beer. You know what I do for a living now, right? Corporate security. Background checks, surveillance equipment that definitely isn't being used to spy on cheating spouses. Hypothetically speaking, Marco said, if someone wanted to verify whether their partner was actually working late, there are ways to do that. Completely legal ways that don't involve breaking into anyone's office or hacking their email. I stared at him. Are you offering to help me spy on my wife? I'm offering to help you find out the truth. What you do with that information is up to you. The rationale part of my brain wanted to object. Married people trusted each other. They communicated. They didn't hire private investigators to follow their spouses around town. But the rationale part of my brain had been getting quieter lately, drowned out by a growing chorus of small details that didn't add up. The way Mara's phone was always face down now, the new perfume she'd started wearing, the fact that she'd been working late every single Tuesday and Thursday for 3 months, but never seemed tired the next morning. What would that involve? I asked. Marco smiled. Nothing dramatic, just some basic verification, GPS tracking on her car, which you co-own, so it's perfectly legal. Well, maybe some background research on this Alan character, public records, social media, that sort of thing. And if we find out she's actually working late, then you apologize to your wife for doubting her, and I buy you a very expensive dinner to make up for wasting your time. I finished my beer while considering the offer. Outside, rain had started to fall, turning the streetlights into blurry halos. The kind of weather that made you want to stay inside with someone you loved, assuming that someone actually wanted to be inside with you. Okay, I said. But we do this quietly. If I'm wrong... You won't be, Marco interrupted. Trust me on this one. 20 years of police work taught me to recognize the signs, and your wife is checking every box on the list. That night, I lay in bed listening to Mara's breathing and trying to remember the last time we talked about something that mattered. Really talked, not just exchanged information about schedules and household maintenance. The woman next to me felt like a stranger wearing my wife's face. She'd come home at 11:30, claiming the team had ordered pizza and lost track of time. Her explanation was detailed and plausible, delivered with just the right amount of exhaustion. But her clothes didn't smell like pizza. They smelled like expensive cologne, and something else I couldn't identify. My phone buzzed with a text from Marco. GPS tracker installed. We'll know where she goes tomorrow. I deleted the message and tried to sleep, but my mind kept circling back to the same question. What exactly was I going to find out, and was I prepared to handle the answer? The next morning brought the usual routine. Mara announced another late night, kissed my forehead with the same mechanical precision, and headed out to face the world. Jeremy made his usual observations about adult behavior being inexplicable, and I drove him to school while trying to act like everything was normal. But normal was relative, and my definition had been shifting for months. The beauty of modern technology is that everyone leaves a trail. People think they're being sneaky, but they're actually broadcasting their locations, preferences, and relationships to anyone who knows where to look. Marco called me at 10:30 the next morning, his voice carrying the satisfaction of a man who'd just solved a puzzle. Well? I asked, though I already knew from his tone that my suspicions weren't paranoia after all. Your wife didn't go to the office last night, he said. She went to the Sheraton downtown, stayed until 11:15, then drove straight home. I set down my coffee mug with deliberate care. The Sheraton. That's not the interesting part. The interesting part is that Alan Ryder's BMW was in the same parking garage, arrived 30 minutes before her, left 15 minutes after. The confirmation hit me like a punch to the stomach, but it was a punch I'd been expecting. The relief of knowing I wasn't losing my mind almost balanced out the rage. So what now? I asked. Now we gather more evidence. You're going to need documentation if this goes to court. Court. Divorce proceedings. Custody arrangements. The practical realities of a marriage falling apart crashed over me like a cold wave, but underneath the shock was something else, a calculating anger that surprised me with its clarity. What kind of documentation? Photos, if we can get them, financial records showing unexplained expenses, communication logs. The more evidence you have, the stronger your position becomes. I spent the rest of the day thinking about evidence and positions while fixing a networking issue at a dental office. The work was routine: replace a faulty router, update some software, explain to the staff why they couldn't use password 3 for everything, but my mind kept drifting to the Sheraton and what my wife had been doing there. That evening, Mara announced another late night with the same casual indifference she'd been perfecting for months. Big presentation tomorrow, she said, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. The whole team needs to be ready. Sounds important, I said. Alan's really counting on us to deliver. Alan, always Alan. I wondered if she realized how often his name came up in her explanations, or if she'd simply stopped caring about subtlety. After she left, I called Marco. She's heading out again. I know, I'm already in position. 2 hours later, my phone rang. Same hotel, same parking arrangement, Marco reported, but this time I got photos. Alan's car, her car, timestamps showing they arrived and left together. Send them to me? Are you sure? Once you see these, there's no going back to pretending you don't know. I thought about Jeremy, asleep upstairs, trusting that his parents had everything under control. I thought about the mortgage payments and the college fund and all the practical complications that came with dismantling a life you'd spent 15 years building. Send them, I said. The photos arrived 5 minutes later. Clear, well-lit shots of the hotel parking garage. Mara's Honda next to Alan's BMW. A timestamp showing 7:43 p.m. Another showing them leaving together at 11:28 p.m. But the third photo was the one that made my hands shake with rage. Mara and Alan walking through the hotel lobby, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back. Her face turned toward him, laughing at something he'd said. Both of them looking comfortable and familiar, like this was a routine they'd performed many times before. They looked happy together. That was the part that hurt most, not the betrayal itself, but the evidence that she was happier with him than she'd been with me in months. I stared at the photos until the details burned themselves into my memory, then forwarded them to a secure email account I'd set up for this purpose. Evidence, documentation, the building blocks of whatever came next. My phone buzzed with a text from Mara. Running later than expected. Don't wait up. I typed back, no problem, take your time. The next morning, I watched her go through the routine of pretending to be a faithful wife. Coffee, small talk about Jeremy's upcoming science project, A kiss goodbye that felt like a mockery of every genuine moment we'd ever shared. "Have a good day at work," I said. "You too," she replied, already checking her phone for messages that probably weren't from the office. After she left, I sat in the kitchen with my laptop and started researching Alan Ryder. Social media profiles, professional background, public records. The man had a digital footprint the size of a small country, and most of it painted a picture of someone who thought the world owed him whatever he wanted. Married to Susan for 22 years, 2 kids in college, a house in the suburbs that probably cost more than I'd make in a decade. Active on LinkedIn, where he posted motivational quotes about leadership and success. The kind of guy who used phrases like synergistic solutions and paradigm shifts without irony. But the most interesting discovery came from his Instagram account, which he apparently used to document his rise through the corporate ranks. Photos from company events, business trips, team-building exercises. And there, buried among the professional networking shots, was a photo from last month's regional conference. The caption read, "Great team-building session with our HR department. Success is all about collaboration." The photo showed Alan and 3 other people at what looked like a hotel bar. Expensive lighting, craft cocktails, the kind of place where a single drink costs more than most people's lunch. Alan stood in the center, one arm around a colleague I didn't recognize, the other hand resting casually on Mara's waist. My wife was smiling at the camera, but her body language told a different story. She was leaning into Alan's touch, comfortable with his proximity in a way that suggested this wasn't their first time in such an arrangement. I screenshot the photo and checked the metadata. Location, Sheraton downtown. Date, 3 weeks ago. Time, 9:47 p.m. The same hotel where Marco had followed them. The same time frame as her late work nights. I stared at the photo for a long time, memorizing every detail. Alan's smug expression, Mara's genuine smile, the first one I'd seen from her in months. The casual intimacy of their positioning that screamed affair to anyone who bothered to look. But what struck me most was how careless they'd been. Posting evidence of their relationship on social media, meeting at the same hotel repeatedly, maintaining routines that anyone could track with minimal effort. They thought they were untouchable. Alan probably figured his position protected him, and Mara assumed I was too trusting or too stupid to notice what was happening. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The thing about revenge is that it works best when it's precise. Sloppy revenge creates sympathy for your target, but surgical revenge, the kind that uses someone's own actions against them, that creates consequences they can't argue with. I spent 3 days planning my approach. 3 days of watching Mara lie to my face about her evening plans while I documented every deception. 3 days of researching the key players in what was about to become a very public drama. The screenshot of Alan's Instagram post sat in a folder on my desktop labeled Insurance Documents, hiding in plain sight like the truth usually does. On Friday morning, I compiled my distribution list. First recipient, Susan Ryder, Alan's wife of 22 years. Finding her email wasn't difficult. She ran a small interior design business, and her contact information was publicly available. A woman who'd built a life with someone deserved to know when that someone was dismantling it behind her back. Second recipient, the corporate ethics board at Mara's company. Their contact information was listed on the company website under reporting concerns. Alan's behavior represented a clear violation of their harassment and professional conduct policies. They'd want to know about it. Third recipient, Mara's parents, Richard and Patricia Whitman. They'd always made it clear they thought their daughter had married beneath her station. They'd be very interested to learn what their perfect daughter was doing with her evenings. I crafted the email with the care of a surgeon making an incision. No accusations, no emotional outbursts, no lengthy explanations. Just the facts, presented clearly and without commentary. Subject, professional conduct concern. Please see attached image, posted publicly on Instagram by Alan Ryder on date. The metadata confirms the location and timestamp. I thought you should be aware of this situation. That was it. No signature, no additional context. The photo would speak for itself. I attached the screenshot, double-checked the recipient list, and hovered my cursor over the send button. Once I pressed it, there would be no taking it back. The dominoes would start falling, and I had no idea where they'd land when the chain reaction finished. But Mara had made her choice when she decided to betray our marriage. Alan had made his choice when he decided to pursue a married subordinate. Now they'd live with the consequences of those choices. I clicked send. The email disappeared into the digital ether, carrying with it the power to destroy 2 careers, 2 marriages, and the comfortable lies that had been sustaining both for months. Then I closed my laptop and went to make breakfast, because Jeremy would be up soon and he'd want pancakes, and some things were more important than revenge. My son wandered downstairs 20 minutes later, hair in its usual state of controlled chaos. "Mom already gone?" he asked. "Early meeting," I said, flipping a pancake with perhaps more force than necessary. Jeremy studied my face with that uncomfortable perceptiveness he'd inherited from both sides of the family. "You okay, Dad? You seem different lately." "Different how?" "I don't know, like you're waiting for something to happen." "Smart kid. Too smart." I handed him a plate of pancakes and tried to look like a man who wasn't expecting his wife's world to explode sometime in the next 48 hours. "Just work stuff," I said. "Nothing for you to worry about." He didn't look convinced, but he was 13 and hungry, so the pancakes won his attention for the moment. My phone buzzed with a text from Marco. "Everything okay? You've been quiet." I typed back. "Just sent some emails. Should be an interesting weekend." 3 dots appeared. Then, "Want backup?" "Not yet, but stay available." The first response came at 11:47 a.m. Susan Ryder's email was brief and professional. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I will handle the matter appropriately." 18 words that probably represented the end of a 22-year marriage. I felt a moment of guilt for the collateral damage, but Susan deserved to know the truth about the man she'd been sharing her life with. The corporate response came 2 hours later from someone named Jennifer Hayes in Human Resources. "We have received your concern and will investigate accordingly. Thank you for bringing this matter to our attention." Standard corporate language that meant someone was about to have a very bad Monday morning. Mara's parents didn't respond immediately, which somehow felt more ominous than if they'd called screaming. Richard and Patricia Whitman were the kind of people who planned their reactions carefully, and their silence suggested they were planning something significant. Mara came home that evening in an unusually good mood, humming while she sorted through the mail. "How was your day?" she asked, the question delivered with what seemed like genuine interest for the first time in months. "Productive," I said. "Got a lot accomplished." "That's great. I love seeing you motivated." The irony was almost unbearable. Here she was, finally acting like a wife who cared about her husband's well-being, just hours after I'd triggered the chain of events that would destroy her affair. "How about you?" I asked. "Good day at the office?" "Really good. Alan thinks we're going to exceed our quarterly targets by a significant margin." Alan. Even now, his name came up naturally in her conversation, like he was a constant presence in her thoughts. "He must be pleased," I said. "Oh, he is. We're all going out to celebrate next week. Team dinner at that new steakhouse downtown." I wondered if that team dinner would still be happening after Monday morning's ethics committee meeting. "Sounds nice," I said. That night, I lay awake listening to Mara sleep and thinking about consequences. By Monday, Alan would probably be suspended pending investigation. By the end of the week, he'd likely be terminated. His wife would file for divorce, his career would be over, and his comfortable life would be in ruins. Mara would face her own reckoning, professional consequences for her involvement with a superior, personal consequences when her parents learned about her behavior, social consequences when the gossip spread through her professional network. I should have felt satisfied. Justice served, betrayal punished, truth revealed. Instead, I felt hollow. Revenge was supposed to be cathartic, but all I could think about was Jeremy sleeping down the hall, unaware that his family was about to implode. My phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. "We need to talk? Susan Ryder." I stared at the message for a long time before typing back, "When and where?" Her response came immediately. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Riverside Park, North Pavilion. Come alone." Susan Ryder was nothing like I'd expected. Where Alan projected corporate swagger and expensive confidence, his wife radiated the kind of quiet authority that comes from years of managing other people's chaos without losing your composure. She was waiting at the pavilion when I arrived, sitting on a bench with perfect posture, hands folded in her lap like she was attending a board meeting. Her hair was silver gray and styled with the kind of precision that suggested she'd never had a bad hair day in her life. "Mr. Kavanaugh," she said as I approached. "Not a question." "Mrs. Ryder, thank you for meeting me." She gestured to the bench beside her. "Please, sit. We have things to discuss." I sat down, maintaining careful distance. The park was nearly empty on a Saturday afternoon, just a few joggers and dog walkers in the distance. A good place for a conversation you didn't want overheard. "That photograph," she said without preamble. "It wasn't the first time you'd seen evidence of their affair." "No," I said. "It wasn't." "How long have you known?" "Suspected for 3 months. Confirmed for about a week." She nodded as if my timeline matched her own calculations. Alan's been different for approximately the same period. Happier, more attentive to his appearance. Working later hours, but somehow less stressed about work. The classic signs. Indeed. Her voice carried no emotion, but her hands tightened slightly in her lap. I've been married to that man for 22 years. I know when he's lying, and he's been lying about everything lately. A jogger passed by, earbuds in, completely absorbed in his own world. Susan waited until he was out of earshot before continuing. I hired a private investigator 2 weeks ago, she said. Professional curiosity, you might call it. The results were comprehensive. She reached into her purse and withdrew a manila envelope, thick with documents. Hotel receipts going back 2 months, restaurant charges for meals he never mentioned, credit card statements showing purchases at jewelry stores and lingerie boutiques. Your wife has expensive tastes, Mr. Kavanaugh. I took the envelope, but didn't open it. Why are you showing me this? Because Alan made a mistake when he chose to betray me, and I don't make mistakes when I choose to respond. Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. He thinks I'm a decorative accessory who'll quietly accept whatever scraps of attention he deigns to offer. He's about to learn otherwise. What do you want from me? Cooperation. Your wife and my husband have been careless, but they're not stupid. They'll try to minimize the damage once they realize they've been exposed. Separately, we might be able to contain them. Together, we can ensure they face the full consequences of their choices. I studied her face, looking for signs of the emotional devastation I'd expected from a betrayed spouse. Instead, I saw calculation and cold determination. You're not falling apart, I observed. I fell apart privately, in my own time, when I first suspected what was happening, she said. Now I'm moving forward with purpose. Alan wants to destroy our marriage? Fine, but he'll do it on my terms, not his. She stood up, smoothing down her skirt with practiced precision. The corporate investigation will begin Monday morning. I've already spoken with Jennifer Hayes in HR. She's a former colleague of mine, and she takes professional ethics very seriously. Alan will be suspended by Tuesday. And then? Then we ensure the story spreads through every channel that matters. Social media, professional networks, community organizations. By the time we're finished, everyone who knows Alan Ryder will know exactly what kind of man he is. The ruthless efficiency of her plan was both impressive and slightly terrifying. What about Mara? I asked. Your wife will face her own consequences. Professional discipline, social ostracism, family disappointment, but those are your decisions to make, not mine. She handed me a business card with her personal contact information. Call me Monday evening. We'll coordinate our next steps based on how they respond to the initial pressure. She walked away without looking back, leaving me alone on the bench with an envelope full of evidence and the realization that I'd just formed an alliance with someone far more dangerous than I'd initially understood. That evening, Mara announced plans for another late night at the office. Big presentation on Tuesday, she said, applying lipstick with the careful attention of someone preparing for a performance. Alan wants the whole team to review everything one more time. Sounds important, I said. It is. This could really advance my career if we pull it off. Her career. I wondered how much of a career she'd have left by Wednesday. Well, good luck with it. She kissed my cheek, leaving a faint trace of lipstick that I didn't bother to wipe off. Evidence of affection from a woman who was about to spend the evening with another man. After she left, I called Jeremy downstairs for dinner. We ate pizza and watched a movie, maintaining the comfortable routine of a father and son whose world wasn't about to explode. Dad, Jeremy said during a commercial break, is everything okay with you and Mom? The question I'd been dreading, delivered with the casual directness that only teenagers could manage. Why do you ask? You guys don't talk to each other anymore, not really. And she's always working late, but she doesn't seem tired. Too smart. Way too smart. Things are complicated right now, I said. But whatever happens, it's not your fault, and you don't need to worry about taking care of either of us. That's our job. He nodded, but his expression suggested he understood more than I wanted him to. My phone buzzed with a text from Marco. Heard from my contact at the Sheraton. Your wife and her boyfriend have a standing reservation every Tuesday and Thursday. Same room, same time. They're not even trying to be subtle anymore. I typed back, they won't need to worry about subtlety much longer. What's the plan? Monday morning, everything changes. I'll call you when the dust settles. That night, I lay in bed next to my wife and listened to her breathe while I planned the final phase of her downfall. She'd made her choices, and now she'd live with the consequences. But first, she'd have to survive the weekend. Monday morning arrived with the kind of gray, drizzling weather that made everything look like a crime scene. Mara left for work with her usual routine: coffee, perfunctory kiss, vague promises about dinner. But there was an energy about her that suggested she was looking forward to something. She had no idea she was walking into a trap 3 weeks in the making. I waited until 9:30 before calling Marco. "It's starting," I said. "You sure you're ready for this?" "I've been ready since I found that first hotel receipt." "What do you need from me?" "Just be available. Things might get complicated quickly." At 10:15, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Kavanagh, this is Jennifer Hayes from Whitman & Associates HR Department. I need to speak with you about the information you provided regarding Alan Ryder and your wife." "What would you like to know?" "Can you verify that you took this photograph yourself?" "I didn't take it. Alan Ryder posted it on his public Instagram account. I simply saved a copy and forwarded it to people who had a legitimate interest in the information." "I see. And you're certain about the metadata showing the date and location?" "Completely certain. I can provide additional documentation if necessary." There was a pause while she made notes. "Mr. Kavanagh, I want you to know that we take these matters very seriously. Both employees will be interviewed today, and appropriate action will be taken based on our findings." "I appreciate that." "You should also know that this kind of situation often becomes complicated. Are you prepared for the potential consequences?" "I've been preparing for 3 months." After she hung up, I sat in my kitchen and waited for the dominoes to start falling. The first call came at 11:43 a.m. "Nathan?" Mara's voice was tight with panic. "I need you to come to the office. There's been some kind of misunderstanding." "What kind of misunderstanding?" "Someone sent HR a photo from the regional conference, and they're asking questions about my relationship with Alan. This is insane. We work together. Of course we interact at company events." The ease with which she lied was almost impressive. Even in crisis, she maintained the fiction that nothing inappropriate had happened. "What kind of questions?" "About whether we've had any contact outside of work, about the nature of our professional relationship. Nathan, they're treating this like some kind of scandal when it's just normal workplace interaction." "I'm sure you'll be able to clear everything up. Can you come down here? Maybe if you explain that you know about my work schedule and you are not concerned about anything." "I can't leave work right now," I said, "but I'm sure HR will handle everything fairly." There was a long pause. "Nathan, I need your support right now. This could affect my career." "Then you should probably focus on giving them honest answers." I hung up before she could respond. The second call came 20 minutes later. This time, it was Susan Ryder. "Phase 1 is complete," she said without preamble. "Alan was suspended 15 minutes ago. Security escorted him from the building." That was fast. Jennifer Hayes is very efficient when she wants to be. Alan tried to claim the photo was taken out of context, but the investigation turned up additional evidence. "What kind of evidence?" "Hotel receipts charged to his corporate credit card. Expense reports claiming business dinners on nights when he was actually entertaining your wife. The company takes fraud very seriously." "And Mara?" "Still being interviewed, but her story doesn't match Alan's, and neither of their stories match the documentary evidence. She'll be suspended by end of business today." I felt a surge of satisfaction followed immediately by something that might have been regret. This was what I'd wanted, what they'd earned through months of deception and betrayal. But it was also the end of the life I'd spent 15 years building. "What's next?" I asked. "Now we let the story spread naturally. Alan will try to control the narrative, but he's underestimated how quickly news travels in our social circles. And personally? I'm filing for divorce tomorrow morning. 22 years of marriage, ended by a photograph he was stupid enough to post on social media." Her voice carried no emotion, but I could hear the weight of those years in the silence that followed. "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be. I'm not the victim here. I'm the woman who's finally free to build a life with someone who deserves it." After she hung up, I sat in the silence of my empty house and tried to process what I'd set in motion. 2 careers destroyed, 2 marriages ended, multiple lives permanently altered by a single email sent on a Friday morning. My phone buzzed with a text from Jeremy. Mom called. She sounded upset. "Everything okay?" I typed back, "Everything's fine. Just work drama. See you after school." But everything wasn't fine, and it was about to get much worse. At 3:17 p.m., my phone exploded with an incoming call from a number I recognized. Richard Whitman, Mara's father. "Nathan." His voice could have frozen water. "We need to talk." "About what?" "About the photograph you sent us of our daughter behaving like a common tramp with her married supervisor." Richard had never liked me, but he'd always maintained a veneer of polite civility. That veneer was apparently gone. "I sent you information I thought you should have." You sent us evidence that our daughter has been lying to her family and destroying her marriage for some middle-aged executive with a BMW. That's one way to put it. Patricia is devastated. Mara is our only child, and we raised her to have better values than this. Maybe you should discuss that with Mara. Oh, we will, but first, I want to understand what kind of man sends compromising photos of his wife to her parents instead of handling the situation privately. The kind of man who's tired of being lied to. There was a long pause. This isn't over, Nathan. Mara made a mistake, but she's still our daughter. We'll support her through whatever comes next. That's your choice. And we'll make sure she has the best legal representation available when she files for divorce. The threat was clear. They intended to make the dissolution of our marriage as difficult and expensive as possible. She's welcome to try, I said, and hung up. By 4 o'clock, I'd received 6 more calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Word was spreading through Mara's professional and social networks with the speed that only really good gossip could achieve. At 4:47 p.m., my wife came home. She walked through the front door like she was entering a crime scene, moving carefully and checking every corner for potential threats. Her professional composure had cracked, revealing something raw and desperate underneath. "We need to talk," she said. "About what?" "About the fact that you destroyed my career and my relationship with my parents over a misunderstanding." I looked at her standing in our living room, still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with 15 years ago, but also a stranger who'd been lying to me for months while planning a future that didn't include me. What misunderstanding would that be? Alan and I work closely together. We have a professional relationship that sometimes requires after-hours meetings and social interaction. That photograph was taken at a company event where alcohol was served and people were celebrating. It doesn't mean anything. The lies came so easily that I almost admired her commitment to the fiction. "Mara," I said quietly, "I know about the hotel rooms, I know about the Tuesday and Thursday night routine, I know about the jewelry and the dinners and all of it." Her face went white. "I know," I continued, "because I've been watching you for weeks. I have photographs, credit card records, GPS tracking data, and witness statements. I know everything." She sat down heavily on the couch, all pretense finally abandoned. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to document everything thoroughly." "Nathan, I can explain." "No," I said. "You can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay. You made your choice, and now you get to live with the consequences." She started to cry then, not the elegant tears of a woman seeking sympathy, but the ugly, desperate crying of someone whose world was collapsing. "I never meant for it to happen," she said. "It just developed over time. Alan made me feel important, valued, like I mattered. And I didn't? You took me for granted. We both did. We stopped trying, stopped paying attention to each other. So you decided to try with someone else? I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. But Nathan, we can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through it, rebuild what we had." I looked at her sitting on our couch, mascara running down her cheeks, asking me to forgive months of calculated deception and betrayal. "No," I said, "we can't. Please, think about Jeremy. Think about our family." "I am thinking about Jeremy. I'm thinking about raising him to understand that actions have consequences and that people who betray the ones they claim to love don't get to escape those consequences just because they're sorry they got caught." She stared at me like I was a stranger. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now you figure out how to rebuild your life without me in it." The front door opened and Jeremy walked in, backpack over his shoulder, stopping short when he saw his mother crying on the couch and his father standing across the room like an executioner. "What's going on?" he asked. I looked at my son, 13 years old and too smart for his own good, and realized that the hardest part of this whole mess was just beginning. "Your mother and I need to have some conversations about our marriage," I said, "but whatever we decide, it has nothing to do with how much we both love you." Jeremy looked back and forth between us, processing the implications with the uncomfortable intelligence that had always made him seem older than his years. "Are you getting divorced?" he asked. "We're going to figure out what's best for everyone," Mara said, reaching for him. He stepped back just slightly, but enough that we all noticed. "I'm going to my room," he said. "Let me know when you guys decide what's happening to my life." He disappeared upstairs, leaving Mara and me alone with the wreckage of 15 years of marriage and the knowledge that the hardest conversations were still ahead of us. But for the first time in months, I felt like I was finally telling the truth about everything, and that was enough for now. 6 weeks later, I sat in Murphy's bar with Marco, watching the evening news report about a corporate scandal involving inappropriate relationships and misuse of company resources. Alan Ryder's face appeared on screen for 30 seconds. identified as a former regional director who'd been terminated following an ethics investigation. Think he'll find another job? Marco asked. Eventually, but not in this industry and not in this city. And Mara? Moved back in with her parents. Her attorney thinks she can get alimony and shared custody, but Susan Ryder's evidence makes that unlikely. Susan's a formidable woman. She's terrifying, but she's also fair. She could have destroyed Mara completely, but she focused on Alan. My phone buzzed with a text from Jeremy. Dad, can we get pizza tonight? Mom's cooking dinner and it's not good. I typed back, Sure, pick you up at 7. How's Jeremy handling everything? Marco asked. Better than expected. He's angry, but he's processing it. Turns out he suspected something was wrong months before I did. Smart kid. Too smart, but he'll be okay. I finished my beer and checked my watch. Time to go pick up my son for our weekly dinner, one of the new routines we'd established in the aftermath of his parents' marriage imploding. The divorce would be final in another month. The house would be sold, the assets divided, the legal framework of 15 years dismantled with bureaucratic efficiency. But Jeremy and I would be fine. We'd build something new from what was left, something honest and uncomplicated by betrayal and lies. Outside, it was starting to rain again, the kind of steady drizzle that made everything look clean and fresh. I walked to my car thinking about consequences and choices, about the price of revenge and the cost of truth. Mara had made her choice when she decided our marriage wasn't worth preserving. Alan had made his choice when he decided his wants mattered more than his commitments. I'd made my choice when I sent that email, and now we were all living with the results.